Alright, so today I'm going to be going over all the roster moves post Masters of London. There was a few during the event, but I don't have those for this video. Starting off with China, there's a lot of moves happening, so I got two slides for that. All the ratings that you see, they'll be from Stage 1. So we'll start off with JDD dropping Stu after 2 years with the team. He was pretty mid, having a 1.0 rating in Stage 1. Then Trace dropped Zele. Again, just a pretty mid player. FPX dropped Bentley, who had a pretty weak performance, 0.85 rating, and he only played Waylay throughout their 13 maps. Rare Adam, who are a promising tier 2 team that could definitely, or should definitely make play-ins, then they add Bentley, or however you pronounce his name. JDD then also to get rid of Coconut, who had the same rating as Stu, and then they had Crown Fisher, who I don't know that much of. Wolves, they dropped Sweet Fat BB, the man from the Toronto run, and then he had a 0.86 rating, so not great from the IGL. But his tenure was pretty fun to watch. Tyloo, then they add Sweet Fat BB, so interesting pickup. He's just getting recycled around. And then Trace moved Viva to a coaching position. Tech, they had two randoms, didn't felt relevant enough, or he should be a pretty bad team. And then DRG, they drop Ackman, who's already benched earlier for life. And then they pick up Verse, who looks great in their 2-0 start. Because as of recording this, China's already kind of started. And then he has a lot more consistency than Flexen, although he hasn't shown a great showing in frags. It just seems like he's made the team more complete. Wolves also had Aluba, so they might not be the worst team in China anymore. And they've actually been okay in a 1-1 start. I think it's now 1-2. They just lost to AG, but they don't look as bad as they did in Stage 1. Nova made some sort of move, but I don't care, it's irrelevant. And then Billy, DRG, and Tyloo add to their coaching boots and analysis. Next up, Tyloo also had Z, or however you say his name. I don't really know how to pronounce it, but he's from their academy team, so probably just a good young prospect. Tyloo have also looked really good in their opening matches. I think they start off 2-0. Wolves also had nothing, the player, so they've just been doing a ton of moves. And then EDG dropped CB, their old 5th member. Probably did this just because after London, Jenny 7 looked like an actual stable 5th. And I said CB would probably be picked up by someone else, and I guess I was right because Nova picked him up, so maybe Nova are actually relevant now, making a good move. Wolves make another move. They get rid of Jawa, and then they add Darion, the one from Bleed. I thought he was actually pretty underrated, so I thought that this was a pretty good move. And yeah, I mean, he's helped Wolves look okay so far. And I also think it helps with roles because it lets Spring stay on the Viper, which he had been good on, I guess, last year. And then the biggest winners for China, probably Wolves at 1, just because they made a lot of decent or alright moves. Tyloo at 2, cause they've been looking pretty good with what they did. And I have DRG at 3, just for probably finding a more stable 5th. And then we'll move on to Civic, which did not have a lot of moves, but they did have the biggest move, which was the whole Frost situation, which I guess he and Patman were in disagreements or something along the lines of that. So he ends up getting out of GE for a lot of confusion, and then I guess he goes to Full Sense, which for GE, you probably aren't feeling good. You might go back to relevancy, as the first international they make was really because of Frost, and then he just leaves right after. So I guess Full Stock Sense would rise. Next up, RQ, they had Zan, just a young talent move, who in EWC, it looked like he replaced one yet. Although I guess there wasn't any like official thing saying that he was going to start. Team Secret get rid of their head coach, and I haven't seen that they've made any replacement, which is kind of confusing because I think Pacific starts in like a few days. Genji, they got rid of the Loki of Valorant, my bad. So we all send our grievances to him. Namchin then signed a 15-year-old named Wuyun, which makes you think, how is he 15 and getting signed? If the age restrictions don't change, he'll be eligible for the 2029 season, which I guess this is just a a play to maybe be good in the future, kind of like what Lev did with Neon, just signing them really young. So maybe Namshim will have a dynasty in a few years. Full sense then bench Leviathan, Leviathan. This was pre-Frost. He was the worst rated player at London though, so it kind of makes sense. And then they had Seth Roth. DH returns to the T1 starters, which makes rules pretty weird because there's like 4 people that could potentially play Duelist. Unknown who the bench person was. I was thinking maybe Stacks would make the most sense. But then again, it's Stacks, so like, are you really going to bench him? Maybe T1 do need to make changes though. Genji Zine, however you say that name too, he gets injured from his wrist, I think, and he's out for the rest of the season. So Genji then pick up Athena and Raxkull. And then Carpe from T1 retires. So the biggest winners was Full Sense for Frost and adding Sephiroth. And then I don't know who the second one was. Maybe you could say it's Namshim. For the Americas, so Lev win London. Then the day after, Wild dropped Birdie. He just didn't really reach his full potential. And then Crusai Heat in for Silence, because Silence benching was, I think, a while ago. I don't know if he's dropped or not yet, which I thought was a really good move, because Heat was with Crew, I think, 2 years ago, and he looked pretty decent, in my opinion. Played a bit of initiator. I think Silence, going into the year, he's going to be one of my favorite players. I thought he had a lot of potential, because he looked pretty good on a bad 2G team. But the role just wasn't for him playing Vice. It's like he kind of just sat there. I don't really know, but this should help Crew out a lot, just because they looked pretty good at the beginning of stage 1. I think they had the 3-0 start, so if they can just find a way to replicate that version or form, then they could probably compete with anyone. So then Envy bring over Glyph from, I think, Gentlemates. He will sub in for Popman. It's an interesting move. I don't know how much of an upgrade it is, but I guess we'll see. Because at their last game, they did have that crazy game versus MIBR. So who knows? Maybe MV could shock people. Furia then add Shy, which I thought this was the best move of the stage. Just because when Shy was back on Crew, also 2 years ago, I thought he was one of the most underrated players. And then he gets dropped, and then nobody picks him up, which I thought was interesting just because of how good I thought he looked. So bringing him in, I think, will show wonders for Furia. And then they also bring on Basic, who was always on the team, I think like last year, at the beginning of last year, but he had visa issues, so he could never compete. So they'll get Riv, Nerve, and Alum, I think. That was during London. Yeah, I think the issue with Nerve was he had a good IGLing time, but he just could not frag, so hopefully Basic will help him out. The only issue I see is that Basic was scouted last year, and do I trust Furia from last year? No, but who knows? The Shy move's good enough. EG then get rid of Calm and Oki. They had already been benched at the end of stage 1, but they're just finally released. This might be it for Calm, unless he goes and plays in tier 2, but I think Oki still has potential though, just because he looked so good last year. And maybe the EG team was just not for him, or they were just terrible. C9, they drop Note X, and they add Vic back after 3 months maybe, or how, I don't even know how long it was. But this was apparently just because Note X was just terrible when they were practicing or something. And Vic actually did look pretty good in tier 2 in his time away. I think he played for the Azure Dragons with like Fluorescent, my bad. So the biggest winners for the Americas is definitely Furia and Crew, and then everyone else except EG and C9, because they're probably just going to be poverty now. For EMEA, Navi benches Filu for Sivov, and I think this team could be a dark horse for the champs run, just because they have good players. It's just about, can they have 5 decent players? They have Hero and Rexic, some of the best, and then Exit, Korik, and now Sivov. I don't know if they're going to be good enough, but they could be. Bilu is definitely the weakest link though, so getting a decent sub probably will help him out a lot. Saivov had previously had stints with Vitality and Fnatic, and he didn't look terrible, so not too bad. Then there's a very interesting one, which is Miniboo benches himself and then proceeds to go on vacation. Pretty interesting. Like, I understand if he wants to do stuff in his life, but to do it mid-season is pretty weird. Just kind of leaving Liquid, but you know, they were not great anyways. They end up adding Trex and Kicks back. So I don't know how much better they'll be, but maybe they just needed a change of scenery. And then Neozinho will actually miss the rest of season for an ACL and meniscus injuries. I don't know how those happened, but that's not great for Heretics. And then Giant X, they get rid of Grabinho and they add Net as the IGL and an import. I don't think it's the greatest move, but they probably also needed a change of scenery. Then Eternal Fire had Costello as an assistant coach, so not that big of a deal. And then most recently, Pacific, they get rid of CNID and they had Waddle, who I don't know too much about. Overall, though, I think it was pretty good for this region, because they had good results at EWC with BBL and Mates both looking a lot better. Maybe just over time, they just needed some practice. And then the region has hope after an underwhelming London playoffs, because I think BBL, Mates, and now Na'Vi all could step up alongside the teams that made London. So the biggest winners is just going to be the whole region after the whole EWC performance. Second, I have Na'Vi, and then third, I have Gentlemates, just because they now look a lot better. And they brought in a new fifth during London too, which was Prox. But yeah, they looked pretty good. So overall, who to look out for? I have Furia, because they might be pretty competitive again. Obviously, Nerve couldn't frag, so if Basic can be at the same level of IGLing, they should be decent, and then also Shy's him. Na'Vi, they might have found a competent fifth, same for DRG. And then the Wolves, their rebuild process should be complete-ish, as long as the players can perform what they should be expected to do. Looking at it right now, I think Glacier's been not great to start the stage, which is kind of unfortunate because he was supposed to be their young duelist, but we'll see. Crew, they might have found their missing piece, and they did have a really high ceiling, when they were in form looking good. Tyloo, they just made a few moves and they've had a good start, so maybe them. And then Mates, they look pretty decent again like they did at the start of the year. So thanks for watching. That's all the moves as of right now. There's still like maybe a few days until the stage starts for like EMEA, Pacific, and Americas. But we'll see what happens. Should be pretty interesting as they're up to the champs run. And then we also have play-ins, so there could be some sneaky tier 2 teams. But yeah, thanks.